we are back finishing up because now the Super Bowl is over, which means it is baseball season officially. Tyler, first baseball segment of 2021. Let's get it.
Oh, it feels so good to be talking about baseball. It's been a long, long time. But real quick before we get into it, pretty much breaking news here a few hours ago, MLB officially agreed on what the rules are going to be. There was a question of whether there's going to be a universal DH like last year, how extra innings was going to look like, if there's going to be expanded playoffs. So they just agreed there is no expanded playoffs. So it's a standard 10-team playoffs as we've seen in the past. There will not be a universal DH, so pitchers are hitting in the National League. But a couple of rules that are going to stay is that they're going to have 7-inning doubleheaders, which there'll probably be a lot of it with this COVID. So when games are delayed and they play doubleheaders, they'll be 7 and 7 instead of 9 and 9. And they'll also have the new extra inning rule, where for extra innings, they'll have a runner lead off at second base. So that will also stay for this season. Other than that, we're pretty much looking at a full 162 game season. Opening day is April 1st, and spring training is less than 2 weeks away. So we are getting real close here to baseball time. So we're going to go through the division previews. We're going to start in the American League East Division. I'm going to kind of go in order of how these teams finished last season and go from there. So the reigning AL East champion, the Tampa Bay Rays, they won the AL East last year, going 40-20 in the shortened 60-game season, and they lost the World Series to the boys in blue, Los Angeles Dodgers. Real quick, this offseason, the Rays usually aren't big buyers anyway, but they did lose two of their best starting pitchers, Charlie Morton and Blake Snell. Charlie Morton to free agency, and Blake Snell got traded to the Padres. They replaced them with Michael Wacha and Chris Archer, guys that aren't nearly at the same level as those guys, but those are kind of who they brought in to replace them. They also re-signed their veteran catcher, Mike Zunino. And that's really about all they've done in the offseason. Otherwise, this team, especially on the offensive side, looks pretty much the exact same. Their projected rotation going into the season will be Tyler Glasnow, Chris Archer, Ryan Yarbrough, Josh Fleming, Brent Honeywell, Andrew Kittredge. So they got a few guys there at the bottom. Projected lineup, catcher Renato Hernandez, first baseman Ji-Man Choi, second baseman Brandon Lau, third baseman Joe Wendell, shortstop Willie Adames, left fielder Manuel Margot, center fielder Kevin Kiermaier, right fielder Randy Rosarena, and the DH will be Mike Zunino / catcher. They'll kind of rotate those guys. So for me, the bad thing looking at these Rays going in, starting rotation is not what it was last year. That's kind of what drove them and allowed them to make it so far in the postseason. Like I said, losing those two guys, Morton and Snell, was going to be a huge loss for them. They didn't really replace them. Offensive consistency for this team is still going to be an issue. We saw in the World Series that this team does have trouble scoring runs. We also saw in the World Series is it seems like this team has an over-reliance on the metrics, as we saw with them pulling Blake Snell in Game 6 of that World Series game. I think they rely a little bit too heavy on that and not enough on the eye test, just seeing how guys can perform and kind of getting more faith on what's going on in the game. The good is the bullpen is going to be lights out as usual. That's their biggest strength, I think, of this team. They're a great defensive team, and this Rays team is one of those teams that has a great culture, great young talent, is always coming through that system. They always seem to find a way to be competitive when they have one of the lowest payrolls in baseball, which is really, really impressive. And that comes from a great culture, a great coaching staff. So this Rays team will definitely be competitive in 2021. So Traden, I assigned you the Tampa Bay Rays here. So my question to you is, first of all, what are you expecting out of Chris Archer? This guy was at one time one of the best pitchers in baseball with the Rays. He was traded to the Pittsburgh Pirates. Since then, has not really been the same Chris Archer. Do you expect him to have a kind of reset, coming back to his former glory days in Tampa? And what do you expect with this starting pitching staff overall? And do you think they have enough to make the postseason this year?
Yeah, so I think Chris Archer is not gonna. I mean, like you said, I don't think he's gonna come back to his. I don't think he's gonna come back to his former self. I mean, he threw 194 plus innings each season during 2014 and 2017. That is a lot considering I think I don't know. I did the math. Like, correct me if I'm wrong, but the average starting pitcher is like what 150 ish. Like that's kind of like the target for a starting pitcher ish. And I don't think he's going to get anywhere. I mean, I think he's going to get somewhat near that, but I honestly think that these guys are going to struggle to see very many single starting pitchers meet that 150 target. Just because I just don't think that they're strong, like you said, and I don't think they're going to lean on. They're going to have to really spread it out a bit. Although for the Rays, like I think most teams would be kind of worried about that uncomfortableness of the fact that it's going to be tough for those pitchers to get those innings in, but the Rays have kind of done that. I mean, that's kind of what their MO is because they lean on that bullpen. And I think that that's where they're going to have to continue doing. And they're really going to have to continue it this year. I don't think the starting pitching is lights out. Tyler Glasnow, I think he played pretty well in postseason. It was fun to watch him, but he did have a couple screw ups. I don't think that the starting lineup is going to get them to the postseason. I think they're going to rely a bit too much on the bullpen at the end of the day. But I think that bullpen is, like you said, lights out. So it might be what is needed to at least itch into the playoffs. And the Rays are kind of smart with their signings. I mean, they might find a little diamond in the rough here going just prior to the start of the season and find someone to give them that fifth starter. Unless Fleming or Patino come in and play, but that remains to be seen. But I don't think they're going to win the division, but I would not be surprised to see them make the playoffs.
Yeah, it's going to be a grind. I think another team I'll talk about later in this division got a lot better. The Yankees are always going to be competitive, so I think this division is going to be tough to win this year for the Rays, especially with the loss they've had to their starting pitching. But as I mentioned, the Rays, they always seem to have a young up-and-coming arm. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of who is going to kind of break out for the Rays this year. So we'll just have to wait and see. For me, I think that they'll get around I'm projecting them to get 86 wins, and they're going to finish third in the division, miss out on the playoffs by a couple games this year. I just don't think that the starting pitching is there. Unless, they get off to a hot start, maybe make a trade for a starting pitcher. It could still happen. I think this Rays team is still going to be competitive, and it's going to be close, it's going to be tight, but I still think they'll just be on the outside looking in when it's all said and done. Moving on to the second place finishers last year, the New York Yankees. They had a record of 33-27. They lost to the Tampa Bay Rays in the division round of the playoffs last year. Their offseason, they did a few good things. They re-signed DJ LeMahieu, the runner-up MVP, which was their probably number one target. They also signed veteran Corey Kluber to their pitching staff. They also traded for Jamison Taillon, who is coming off Tommy John surgery, but is one of the up-and-coming arms in this league. He was formerly of the Pittsburgh Pirates. They also lost Masahiro Tanaka. He's going back to play in Japan after a few great years with the Yankees there. So they kind of gained some pitching, but also lost some pitching as well. Speaking of pitching, their projected rotation will be Garrett Cole at the top, of course, Taillon, Kluber, Jordan Montgomery, Domingo Germain, and Luis Severino will be their starting pitchers. Their projected lineup will be as follows: catcher Gary Sanchez, first baseman Luke Voigt, the last year's reigning home run champ, last year's MVP runner-up DJ LeMahieu, third baseman Gio Urshela, shortstop Gleyber Torres, left fielder Aaron Hicks, center fielder Clint Frazier / Brett Gardner. Brett Gardner is still a free agent, so we'll see what happens with that, but they're pretty much going to expect that he'll probably come back to the Yankees at some point. And then right fielder Aaron Judge, of course. The bad with this team is the injuries, especially to that last guy I mentioned, Aaron Judge. They have a really hard time staying healthy, so that's going to be huge for them for a full season. Their starting pitching depth is a little bit of concern. Obviously, their number one guy, Garrett Cole, is a stud, is an ace. But after that, they got some questions. So we'll see what happens with their starting pitching, which always seems to be a concern with this Yankees team these last few years. And their postseason demons have been kind of coming up. It kind of reminded me of what the Dodgers were going through not too recently. They seem to be competitive every year, but somewhere along the line, they just can't seem to quite make that World Series run. But they're going to be competitive for sure. The good, I mean, this is one of the most potent lineups in baseball. I mean, power, up and down that lineup. Offensively, they're going to be so good, especially if they stay healthy. Their bullpen is fantastic. Aroldis Chapman, Zach Britton, they got Darren O'Day. Chad Green had a good season last year. So that bullpen, they got 4 great guys out of there that they're going to do a great job. So Alex, I signed you the New York Yankees. So first of all, I'm really interested to see how Taillon is going to perform coming off Tommy John. Do you think he kind of continues what he started before he got hurt and will be, a really good pitcher here for the Yankees? And will they finally make it to the World Series this year?
Yeah. So Taillon I just learned this the other day, surprisingly already 29 years old. And I believe this is his second Tommy John. So that's a little worrisome. He hasn't pitched in a long time. We'll have to see what he does when he comes back. I don't think he's going to be the lights out Taillon we saw in 2017, I think, or 2018. And same thing with Kluber. I mean, Kluber's had some weird injuries, a broken forearm from a comebacker. Luis Severino's been hurt. Domingo Germán was suspended for domestic violence issues. And Garrett Cole did not live up to his contract in his first year. But I mean, that's a lot of pressure being the dude. You're in New York. You're playing for the Yankees. You just got paid $300 bajillion. So I expect Garrett Cole to have a better year than he did last year. You didn't even mention Giancarlo Stanton as the DH. He's another ginormous human being that's in that Yankees lineup. Gary Sanchez is terrible. He literally cannot hit the side of a barn. All he does is hit homers. So I'm a little worried about that. I don't think the Yankees will make the World Series. I think there's better teams in the American League. I do think it will help that they get to play every team in the American League this year instead of just the AL East, which was surprisingly pretty good, and the NL East in the shortened season, which was also like a really, really deep division. The Yankees are still a very good team. That starting pitching worries me. I don't think Judge and Stanton will hold up. They always get hurt. So,
yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, that was a big omission on my part for getting Stanton. So thanks for picking me up on that one. Don't know what happened there. He's
always hurt. You forget about him.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think despite all the injuries and all that stuff, I think this Yankees team, it's just they have pretty good depth. I think their starting pitching will do enough. I think they're going to get 95 wins and win the division this year. In terms of making the World Series, who knows? I don't think the American League, as you mentioned, is as strong as the National League. So I think that they've got a pretty decent shot at making it, but we'll see what happens. So moving on to the third place finishers of last year, the Toronto Blue Jays. 2020 finished third with a record of 32-28. They did make the playoffs thanks to the expanded playoff bracket, and they lost in the first round to the Tampa Bay Rays. The offseason, they were very, very busy. They improved a lot. They signed Robbie Ray, who they traded for last year to a one-year deal. They got relief pitcher Kirby Yates. They signed George Springer to a long-term contract. That was one of the biggest free agent gets. They also signed Marcus Semien, which I think will be a very very low-key great sign for them. And they also traded for starting pitcher Steven Matz. So they did a lot here. Their projected rotation, they got a lot of options. Hyunjin Ryu will be their ace, followed by Robbie Ray, Ross Stripling, Nate Pearson, Tanner Roark, Tyler Chatwood, and Steven Matz. So they got a lot of starting pitching. Their projected lineup is going to be pretty damn good here, guys. Catcher Danny Jansen, first baseman Vladimir Guerrero Jr., second baseman Marcus Semien, third baseman Kevin Biggio, shortstop Bo Bichette, left fielder T. Oscar Hernandez, center fielder George Springer, and right fielder Lourdes Gurriel Jr. That is one of the best lineups in baseball, guys. The good for this team, like I said, one of the best offensive teams in baseball, especially with that signing with George Springer and Marcus Semien to add to an already young, great, talented lineup. They're young, they're energetic, they're talented. They're starting pitching depth. They got a lot of options there. That looks pretty good. The bullpen needs some help. if Kirby Yates can be good for them, that's a big if. Coming off an injury and was not the same pitcher that he was, but he was very good for 2 seasons with the Padres. So he could potentially be very good for them. But past that, they really don't have any really good arms out of that bullpen. This team lacks experience. They got a lot of young guys, and they're starting pitching. As much as they have depth, the consistency past Ryu is a question mark. A lot of these guys can go out there and be lights out. But they can also go up there and struggle. So I just think a lot of these guys have just track records of being super inconsistent. So not really sure what we're going to get out of that starting rotation. But I think this team is going to be really competitive. I think they took a huge step forward with their offseason moves. So Eric, I want to ask you, do you think this team is good enough to win the division, and will they win a postseason series this year?
No, they will not win the division. Yes, they will win a postseason series. They will squeeze in to the postseason and maybe upset a team. I think apparently, according to my research, they still have $84 million to spend. So that's going to be going straight to a pitcher, whoever they can get their hands on. Like you said, they need a second punch after Ryu. They got the guys that can hit. They got Vladdy Guerrero Jr. They got Springer now, that cheater from the Astros. But yeah, they're going to need an infielder maybe to help fill that void at third base. It's pretty simple. Hit the ball, score, and defend with a good pitcher. To Angels, take notes on this. But yeah, I think they will win a postseason series. They're going to squeak in and upset somebody.
Nice. Yeah, I'm really excited to watch this team this year. They've been a young up and coming team for a while. With the help of the expanded playoffs last year, they did make the playoffs. Had a winning record. I think they got even better. So I think this team is going to win 90 games this year. They'll finish second in the division, make a wild card spot, and we'll see how they do. With, of course, as we said, with that 10-team playoff, they have that 1-game wild card round with Ryu on the mound. I think they probably got a pretty good shot of winning a playoff game. So Blue Jays, it's going to look great. I think fans north of the border are going to have a great 2021. Moving on to the 4th place finishers in the AL East last season, the Baltimore Orioles had a record of 25-35, missed the postseason as expected. Off season, this team didn't do much. They're still in rebuild mode. They lost their kind of one veteran starter to the Angels and Alex Cobb. They signed Wade LeBlanc, who was formerly of the Orioles. He's to a minor league deal. They traded Jose Iglesias also to the Angels. So the Orioles and Angels got some kind of, good partnership going on. And they signed shortstop Freddie Galvis to replace Iglesias. That's really about it. As I mentioned, this team is still kind of developing their young talent. They're kind of waiting for the era of Adley Rutschman to begin, that the MLB's number 1 prospect who's up and coming. So they're still going to have kind of a pretty rough season here. But their projected rotation, John Means, Keegan Atkin, Dean Kramer, Bruce Zimmerman, and Wade LeBlanc. Their projected lineup: catcher Pedro Severino, first baseman Ryan Mountcastle, second baseman Yolmer Sanchez, third baseman Rio Ruiz, shortstop Freddie Galvis, left fielder Austin Hayes, center fielder Trey Mancini, and right fielder Anthony Santander. So again, a lot of names you probably have never heard before, but a lot of these guys had a pretty good 2020 season. So I think just look for these guys to continue to develop. They may play spoiler for some of these teams that are going to be more competitive. Another good news, you guys play in one of the most beautiful ballparks in the league, so you got to at least enjoy that part of it. Other than that, it's going to be another rebuild year, and it's going to be a slow, long season in Baltimore. So James, I want to ask you, you asked me what team to cover. I gave you the Orioles just because I thought it'd be a good challenge for you. So what players are you most excited to watch from this team this year? And what part of their team do you think needs the most improvement in order for them to be competitive moving forward?
I just want to start off with just a quick fun fact that doesn't mean anything to this at all. But whenever you say Orioles, I think of Oreos. So this team is great because I
Yeah.
love Oreos.
There you go.
Anyway, team players that I want to watch. Trey Mancini, big one. Comeback story. He sat out all that season because he was diagnosed with stage 3 colon cancer. He's since then been healthy. So now he's back to playing for the first time in 2 years. And I mean, career-wise, he's a good player. He has a career batting average of 274 and has 86 home runs in his career. He was runner-up for Rookie of the Year whenever he was a rookie in 2015, I believe. But he's a good player. And the fact of the matter is he's coming back from cancer. That's a great story. And I think that'll unite his team. The fact that he's out there doing his thing, trying his best after such an arduous process is cool. It's good to see. And then also Anthony Santander. You forgot the T in his name. But Anthony Santander had 11 home runs in 37 games last year. That's a crazy high rate. You probably won't replicate that this upcoming season, but he's shown power. This is the first time he's ever shown power in his career. 11 home runs, 37 games. Amazing.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay. Their biggest weakness, the thing they need to improve on the most, is their starting pitching. It wasn't good to begin with. And then you go ahead and lose your number one guy. Your number one guy who wasn't that good is now gone. He's with the Angels. So without good starting pitching, you're not going to do much. I guess they could try and overpower everybody and just, hit home runs like crazy. But that's probably not going to happen. So yeah, rebuilding year.
Yeah. I think last year was kind of the first time where I think we saw this new era of Orioles players kind of break out a little bit. We kind of saw some potential in a few guys. So I think that's a positive. So I think look for more of that and maybe a couple other guys that are going to either build on years they had last year or break out again. And the future is bright, Orioles fans. You need a few more years of development waiting for Rutschman to come up and make his big league debut. Once that happens, I think this Orioles team will be very good. As James mentioned, is if they can get some more pitching to their team, this team's going to be pretty good in a few years' time. But 2021 is going to be another rough one. I'm going to say 70 wins just to be nice, and they'll finish last in the division. So moving on to the team that finished last season, in 2020, my former employer, the Boston Red Sox. They were 24-36. Had a real rough season, a lot of injuries, just a lot of just absolute shit that happened last year with them. Off season, they signed pitcher Garrett Richards. They signed super utility man, former Dodger World Series champion Kike Hernandez. That's a heartbreaker. It hurts me to say it every time I see him with a Boston hat on. It just hurts a little bit. But good for you, Kike. And then they traded for relief pitcher Adam Ottavino, and they also signed Hunter Renfroe, who will probably hit piss missiles over the Green Monster there in Boston. Their projected rotation will look like Nathan Eovaldi, Eduardo Rodriguez, Garrett Richards, Tanner Houck, Nick Pivetta, and Chris Sale will probably return from Tommy John probably halfway through the season if that projection holds still. So we'll probably see Chris Sale towards the end of 2021, hopefully coming back. That will be huge for them. Their projected lineup will look like catcher Christian Vasquez, first baseman Bobby Dahlbeck, second baseman Kike Hernandez, so weird to say, third baseman Rafael Devers, shortstop Xander Bogaerts, left fielder Andrew Benintendi, center fielder Michael Chavis, and right fielder Alex Verdugo. The big question mark with them right now is the status of Jackie Bradley Jr., who is their free agent center fielder. As most reports say, he's probably going to move on from Boston and sign elsewhere. So that's why I had Benintendi, Chavis, and Verdugo in the outfield there. But there is a chance that that JBJ still could come back to the Red Sox, but it's looking like not. So the bad for this team, the pitching. They had a lot of injuries with their starting rotation. They'll get some of those guys back this season. But their bullpen in particular was horrible, historically horrible last year. So I think you can only go up from here. I don't think they will be that bad again. I think they're just a little bit behind the pack in this division. I think a lot of teams are really starting to push forward, and the Red Sox are kind of lagging a little bit. So I don't think that they'll be super competitive this season. But this lineup is pretty solid. I think as I listed those guys and I was looking, I'm like, I think that's a winning lineup. I just think their pitching is not nearly where it needs to be. But it's the Boston Red Sox. They got the resources to win, and they can turn this thing around pretty quickly. They've won four World Series in the 2000s for a reason. This team is very good from the whole organization. So don't look for them to be down for too long. I think they will be competitive this season, but I think just a few other teams in this division are too good. So my projection is they'll finish with 82 wins. They'll finish right around 500 and finish fourth. So we're going to go around the horn here, and we're going to go with everyone's final standings. I'll start with myself. I'm going to go with Yankees will win the division, followed by the Toronto Blue Jays. Third will be Tampa Bay Rays. Fourth, Boston Red Sox. And bottom will be the Baltimore Orioles. So, Alex, let's start with you. What are your final standings for the AL East?
I really want to pick the Blue Jays to win the division. I just don't think they're quite there yet. I think they need another pitcher. So I'm going to agree with the exact same order you just had, which was really fucking annoying. But so, yeah, Yankees, Blue Jays, Rays, Red Sox, Orioles.
Eric, what do you got?
Yankees, Jays, Rays, Orioles, Red Sox last again. Fuck them.
Wow. Damn. Trade-in, what do you got?
Yankees, Rays, Jays, Orioles, and Red Sox.
Okay. And James?
Blue Jays, Red Sox, Yankees, Rays, and Orioles.
Wow.
I think the Rays will slip because they're too analytically driven, and I think that's going to be their downfall.
You think the Red Sox are good enough to finish second?
Yeah, dude. The Yankees are going to hit that injury bug again. And same thing I said about the Rays, like analytically driven, and then the Orioles just suck. So, yeah, Red Sox will take that second spot.
All right. I like it. Baseball's back, everybody. I'm so excited that we're talking baseball again. Cannot wait for spring training to start. Pitchers and catchers report on February 17th. We're going to be doing these division previews weekly here until the season starts. So next week we'll be talking about the AL Central. So looking forward to that one. Alex, that's all I got.
All right, Tyler, great job. Yeah, I'm pumped for baseball. I'll be back too. Helps when your team is the defending world champs.
Hell yeah, baby.
You just got Trevor Bauer. What the heck, man?
Dude. Woo, nasty.
Is that like Bauer skates hockey?
Yep.
Yeah.
Same guy.
Same guy.
Same guy.
Yeah.
Same guy.
Mhm.
Same guy.